Hello there, you unfortunate listeners. Have you ever been curious about bones? Not particular bones, but just bones as a general concept. Your own bones, anime bones, discarded bones that can normally found at anime cons. Me too. You may be asking yourself, the host, what does this have to do with today's story? Well, that's a good question. Absolutely nothing. There'll be no bones about it. Today, we're reading The Enigma of Amigara Fault. It's time for more Manga Macabre. Recently, a huge earthquake had racked the countryside of the H prefecture, devastating the surrounding area, and also unearthing a large fault on the slope of Amigara Mountain. After the earthquake began a large torrent of strange incidents. However, these odd occurrences were only a mere omen of what was to come. Owaki, a young man coming to visit the fault, ran into another young hiker named Yoshida. The two both came to the fault for the same reason, because they saw it on television and just felt compelled to visit. However, it wasn't just the pair that felt compelled to visit the fault. Up ahead, countless tourists from all over Japan had come to witness the foreboding fault, and its main attraction, the innumerable human-shaped holes in the rock face. The human-shaped holes had a sinister but welcoming presence to them, no doubt leading to positive Yelp reviews. In addition to the countless visitors who were compelled by some supernatural urge to see the fault, researchers also came to examine the recently unearthed fault as well. It was concluded that the human-shaped holes reached over 30 meters before curving off into the mountain, and must go even further than that. However, further exploration at the moment would be impossible. It would also be impossible that these are naturally forming. They must have been dug by someone or something. But that too would have been impossible, because these holes were dug from inside of the mountain, with no sign of an entryway. And they couldn't have been made with modern technology, as these holes themselves are from antiquity. Yoshida's face filled with a mixture of determination and grimace. She saw it on TV. That's why she came. It wasn't just the foreboding fault, but the hole that was exactly shaped like her. She claimed that among the tens of thousands of holes in the fault, one was her exact silhouette. Owaki claimed this would be egotistical, maybe even crazy to think that among the countless holes in the fault carved out countless years ago, that one of them was made specifically for her. However, viewers, as we all know, here at Manga Macabre, the unlikely is possible, and the ominous is always inevitable. Another man filled with the same restlessness Yoshida was filled with, Nakagaki, had also been looking for his hole relentlessly, and mentioned that countless people gathered at Amigara Fault, specifically to find the human-shaped hole that was shaped like them, and Nakagaki had recently found his. Putting his money, and existence for that matter, where his mouth is, Nakagaki proved that the human-shaped hole was in fact his by sliding into the rock face for what was very obviously, or at least so it seemed, no way out. A rescue team was formed to look for the man. After 3 hours, they had come up empty-handed. Nakagaki seemed to have been gone to the abyss, and because the human-shaped hole was made perfectly for him, entry after a certain point, as well as a rescue for the doomed Nakagaki, would prove impossible. That night, Owaki had a nightmare, or maybe even a vision of the doomed Nakagaki, as he was inside of Nakagaki's hole, witnessing the events as him. He couldn't move, and the hole was carved in such a way where the only way to move would be forward. Nakagaki's supernatural obsession would soon find itself as the all-too-human fear. Unable to move forward or backward, he concluded that the earthquake must have warped the shape of the hole. The reality of Amigara Mountain being his tomb was also the point when Owaki woke up from this nightmare. Owaki immediately set off to see if Nakagaki was found. However, Yoshida already knew that he was gone. Her face was drained of color, as if she found out the exact time and date of her death. She had found the hole that was made for her. It was near the base of the mountain. There was no denying it. It was her exact silhouette. Her already grim expression dropped into outright panic. If before she looked like she knew the time of death a few moments ago, then now she would know that the time was at hand. Yoshida knew that this hole was dug out specifically for her. She was terrified knowing that the hole had an overwhelming, welcoming presence that wanted her to embrace its granite grip. And once she did, she would be trapped there, with no escape, much like Nakagaki, and it will serve as her tomb as well. Yoshida's terrifying urge wasn't just felt by her. Soon after, many others began finding their own holes. Hole fever was, as they say, sweeping the nation. A household name and meme, actually. Say it with me if you know the words. This hole? It was made for me! The man had to go in. He knew that it would be the end for him if he entered, but had to do it anyway, with countless spectators following in suit. Meanwhile, Yoshida knew that she had to enter the hole. She could hear the holes beckoning to her, like a mocking siren, saying to come in. Yoshida was racked with grief as if she was attending her own funeral, and staring down her own casket and open grave. Owaki filled the hole with nearby stones and debris, trying to pacify her. If the hole was filled, she wouldn't be able to go in, so the problem would be solved, he thought to himself. Later that night, Yoshida confides in Owaki that maybe she was scared because the hole represents a deeper fear. A fear of being alone. Her parents weren't there for her, and neither were many of her friends, but maybe she wouldn't need to be alone now that she's found Owaki. Later that night, Owaki had another nightmare that may have also been a vision. He was a criminal of an unknown but unforgivable crime countless aeons ago. Ready for punishment that was, in this case, closer to an execution. When a person would commit these unspeakable crimes, human-shaped holes would be dug for the center as punishment, and Owaki, or at least his past version of him, was about to be sent to his. Note that this perfectly cut human-shaped hole also accommodates for his anachronistic mullet. Owaki, or at least this past version of himself, felt the stony embrace of the walls. They were carved in such a way that pressed the victim forward. While the method of execution wasn't immediate, it was quite painful. The human-shaped holes were slowly but surely bending the victim out of place, snapping sinew and breaking bones, as you had no way forward and you had to fit this mold. Owaki then woke up in a cold sweat, only to realize that Yoshida was gone, and Owaki knew exactly where she had gone. The rocks blocking Yoshida's silhouette were missing, and Owaki knew what happened. She had surrendered to the fate that she knew would come to pass. However, Owaki's time alone would be short-lived, as nearby he found his own human-shaped hole, complete with mullet, of course. Owaki, against all reason like many before him and countless years ago, like Yoshida, would delve into the rock face never to be seen again. Or, so we think. Several months after the Amigara Fault incident, another team of researchers found many oddly shaped distorted holes that seemed to also be unearthed by the earthquake. One of the researchers pondered if they were connected to the human-shaped holes earlier that year. But at that moment, a gnarled, gangly mass lurched through the crevices, uttering what was meant to be a scream of pain, but only silence, broken by the faint motion of flesh grinding itself through the narrow stone passage, thus concluding the Enigma of Amigara Fault. Wasn't that a fun mimetic classic, my dear, dear victims? So, what have we learned today? Firstly, nothing about bones, which does beg the question, what is education if not a close, in-depth study of bones? Can one truly know the nature of bones? How many have seen their own skeleton? Have any of you, my dear victims, seen your own skeleton? What would you do if you found your own skeleton laying about? Could you trust it? Please comment below on your thoughts on your own bones, or anyone else's bones. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, and don't forget to subscribe, and then remove all of your bones. Place them neatly in your front lawn in alphabetical order. Please take precautions to make sure all of your bones are nice and clean, stripped of any sinew, flesh, or miscellaneous grime. Remember, Cleanliness is next to godliness, and the god in question would greatly prefer the offering of bones to be uncontaminated. Next time on Manga Macabre, the car looked pretty good online, even better in person.